slide, why don't you come up and let's do your presentation. So if your presentee would like to get out of here, you can.
This is Todd Jennings with NDOT. He's the one that's over the
transit.
Share a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to thank Doug and City of Newcastle for inviting me out here tonight. Doug reached out to me about a month or so ago, asked me if I would come tonight and just share a little bit about something that took place this past year. I don't know. Have you shared anything with anybody, Doug, as far as what's going on right now?
No.
So you guys probably like anxious about what I'm about ready to do.
He
right?
doesn't tell us
I
anything.
know I did.
Just start from the
All right.
beginning.
That's the way I like it, Doug. All right. No. So every year, by the way, I am Todd James. I manage the rural public transportation funds that the city of Newcastle receives every year for public transportation, federal state funds.
Thank you.
So, like I said, Doug asked me about a month ago if I would come tonight and kind of present something that took place in our industry last year that we're very proud of. Doug being one, for the city of Newcastle being one of 42 sub-recipients in the state that receive those funds to provide public transportation. Every year at the annual Rural Transportation Conference, there is an award that's given out to usually one individual and one agency within rural public transportation nationwide. It's called the Rural Mobility Champion Award. This last year at the conference, the judging committee for that award decided that just based on everything that our country's been going through, actually, the war through the COVID, the pandemic, and all the continued provision of public transit that our workers have been doing over the last couple of years, they decided to award to every public transportation driver in the country the award. So tonight, we are proud as a state that Newcastle and all their drivers are going to be presented this award here tonight. So Doug, if you want me to, and there's actually, I will go ahead and share real quick, at the Rural Transit Conference, there was a nomination that was read, and it shares, and it goes into a little bit of detail, it explains the epitome of what our transit drivers are. And I hope everybody here tonight is an advocate for public transportation. It's a needed service in our state, and we're very proud of transit managers like Doug. As I said, I've got 42 recipients. Doug makes my job easy. He's always quick to call if he's not sure about something with the transit program, federal funding, compliance, and all that. So you guys should be very proud of the team that you've got with Doug and his drivers and his staff. So if you don't mind, I'll just read it real quick. It's the nomination packet that was presented at the conference. It says, no nominee is more deserving than this year's award winner, who has done more to not only accentuate the critical role that rural transit plays in the viability of rural America, but also to bring awareness, support, and appreciation than any other. This year's award winner is being recognized for exceptional bravery, commitment, and self-sacrifice demonstrated while in the throes of an unprecedented pandemic that has shaken the world and, yes, rural America to its very core. In March of 2020, we could not have dreamed what was about to happen or how it would forever change our lives. Pre-COVID, this award winner routinely went to work every day striving to meet the mobility needs of her passengers in an unselfish, caring way. This person is a personal hero of the passengers that otherwise may not have been able to get to the needed medical appointments, grocery stores, jobs, and other trips that were essential to the quality of life in the rural community. The essential nature of this winner's role in providing transportation services to the community, however, was for the most part unrecognized. And then the unthinkable happened. The world stopped. At least most of the world stopped, quarantined, and retreated to the safety of their homes. But not this award winner. This winner showed up for work because he knew that if he didn't, essential services would not be provided. People would not be able to get to life-critical medical appointments and treatments, and workers would not be able to get to essential jobs. This winner understood that she was part of a critical response to this crisis and was needed to be there to answer the call and meet her community needs, whatever that looked like. She needed to be there for the most vulnerable of populations. She was their lifeline. Faced with chaos, uncertainty, conflicting information, and what seemed like a never-ending onslaught of tests, this winner showed up to meet the challenge. He worked with others on his team to creatively solve problems as they became apparent. In the early days, this was done with little, if any, guidance or support. No one knew what to do or how to do it, but yes, this this winter came to work every day and did his best to come up with workable solutions, some of which were unique and yes, even unconventional. He didn't know what to expect and didn't know or understand the danger of the invisible enemy he was facing. He only knew he had to be there to do his job because his passengers, his community, were counting on him. While others stayed at home in the secure cocoons, this winter came to work. She wore homemade masks in the early days before masks were provided to transit workers. The fit may not have been good. It may have been hot. Glasses may have been fogged. The elastic may have hurt her ears. It may have been hard to get used to, but she did what she had to do, and she still is. Even as others have retired their masks, she has not. She still meets the mandate and protects others by wearing her mask every day. He has become an expert at smiling with his eyes, welcoming and reassuring all passengers that board his vehicle. She learned what it meant to do a deep clean of a vehicle and what it meant to sanitize surfaces. She learned a lot about how viruses can spread, washed her hands more often than she thought possible, and continuously used hand sanitizer sourced from some very unusual places, getting creative when supplies were low. Not sure how to implement social distancing practices on a transit vehicle, he figured out how to limit seating and cut the capacity of his transit system in half while still providing critical service. He learned how to focus on the provision of essential trips, encouraging rear entry to vehicles whenever possible. He got creative when a barrier shield was needed. He was resourceful. If plexiglass was available, it was added to the driver's compartment. If not, he tripped to Walmart's, sourced a clear shower curtain and duct tape that was draped around the driver's compartment. This award winner volunteered to transport first responders and medical personnel to quarantine sites, even if it meant personally quarantining themselves. This winter volunteered to dress in hazmat gear and wear medical grade PPE to transport passengers that were sick, COVID positive, or needed to get to a testing site. This winter assisted his transit system in providing equitable access to vaccinations by ensuring that everyone had transportation to vaccination sites. He delivered meals, groceries, packages, medicine, and other essential items to community residents that could not travel to needed stores or service providers. She professionally handled the angst, frustration, and discontent of disgruntled passengers that didn't want to follow transit system procedures or mask mandates. No matter the challenge, this winter came to work prepared to serve. She had to. People were continuing to count on her. She was their lifeline, and people in the community noticed. Because of this winter, the transit system was able to answer its community's call, and for perhaps the first time, the transit service was recognized for its role as an essential service within the rural community it served. These challenges, however, speak little to the deep personal sacrifices this winter made. Sacrifices much greater than any of us could have imagined, the extent to which we are only now beginning to understand. The dangers and fear that this winter faced every day were and continue to be very real. Even though her focus was on how to best protect herself, co-workers, passengers, and her family, she faced the fear of knowing she was at increased risk of falling victim to this killer. She also was unsure if the virus would be transmitted on her vehicle. Would she unknowingly bring it back home to her loved ones? How would it impact her family life? Did she need to isolate herself from her family and friends? Every day was and continues to be a risky proposition full of unknowns. Like most of us, this winter had to face the psychological loss of normalcy, fractured relationships, isolation, and frustration. But he also had to endure the sorrow of coming to work too often and learning that yet another passenger had fallen victim to the virus. The loss was great among the vulnerable population he served. The missing names on his manifest, a constant reminder of this virus' cruel and merciless nature. The loss of family, friends, and coworkers was also a reality for many and made the burden almost impossible to bear. The toll on this award winner's mental state cannot be overstated nor denied, and yet he still showed up for work every day. People were counting on him. As the pandemic unfolded and what was initially referred to in terms of weeks turned into months, a realization that there was no end in sight. There were days when this award winner was exhausted and didn't think she could go on, but go on she did. People depended on her. If this person sounds familiar, it should. This person is you. The 2021 Rural Mobility Champion Award winner is every rural frontline worker that answered the call of their communities to provide essential transportation services through a pandemic that has shown no mercy. Frontline heroes that understood the importance of what they do and unselfishly faced the challenges of the pandemic head on at great risk to their physical and mental well-being. proved to be flexible, adaptable, creative, strong, and resilient day after day. You understood that if these essential transportation services were not provided, lives could be lost, critical medical treatments would not be received, other essential workers would not be able to perform their jobs, and rural America would be diminished. Our frontline heroes demonstrated to America how essential rural transit is and how integral these services are to the very life and existence of their communities. You demonstrated what we in the industry already knew. Our rural frontline workers unselfishly serve the needs of our most vulnerable populations in rural America every single day. Not because it is your job, but because you intrinsically want to serve others, even if it means great sacrifice. If even we in the industry did not know the depth to which that commitment went until we faced the greatest crisis of our time, and our frontline heroes stared it down, showed up, and did what it took to get us through. The definition of a hero is a person who has demonstrated exceptional bravery and sacrifice for the benefit of others. You, along with the other rural frontline workers throughout rural America, are heroes. We celebrate you. The Rural and Inner City Bus Conference Committee celebrates you. Your community celebrates you. America celebrates you, and we all thank you.
Thank you.
Doug, if you want to come up, we'll go ahead and present your. Okay. So I'll call your name up, and then you come up and. All right. So we got William.
Uters, Paul. Bill.
Oh, he gets two of them? Two of them, all right.
Just stay up here, step off the side so we get a picture.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, gotcha.
Timothy Waller.
Jennifer Donahue. Amber Taylor. Sean Poindexter. Kimberly Floyd.
Thank you. Well, you guys step inside and kind of get straight approach. We can get a picture of you there. Hop in here with them, Doug.
It's like where the Ohio State sweatshirt.
Short people in the front, coming down.
Trying to see me out of those times.
You are. I can't, I'm confused.
This is, so, you guys.
Sure?
No, I'm positive.
All right.
Say cheese now. 1, 2, 3. Cheese now. Let's get another one here. You got one yet?
I've got one, too. Let the young man do it.
Okay, let's go on with Mr. Guthrie. Thanks again.
Back in 2020, did we talk about having some signs that?
Yes, we have, we did, and we kind of got that started, and then COVID hit and kind of went back.
Well, the reason I asked, we had the, look like a tombstone out here on 3, but I think Stephanie Tedder came to you and talked about, we'd like to put that out on the east side, but we want to get it painted up, but if we're just going to do new signs, we'd much rather do it that way, but.
Corey did speak to that just a little bit. You'd looked at some signage and talked about some signage. And I don't know where we we left off on this.
So you give me twice now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about this, wow, that's dangerous.
Hoping I can pay the whole fee.
Yeah. So we could certainly resurrect the, welcome the Newcastle signs on the main entryways.
We allocated $6,000 for that, I believe, that we haven't spent.
But I couldn't ask for a better segue into, and I actually wasn't ready to talk about it, but I have a proposal that I can get to you for a county-wide wayfinding program with an opportunity for each of the communities to participate. And so I think that would be the better way to go, more comprehensive approach. So welcome to Henry County, and welcome to Newcastle, and Nicetown wants to participate, they can participate, so on and so forth.
We'd just like to have something out on the east side.
Well, that was where the first sign was gonna go, and we actually had a spot out that direction that we felt was a good spot for
So
one.
I can go either way. I mean, we can work on Newcastle specific, or getting an opportunity to talk with the partners of the county and see if they're interested. And what the study will do is it will identify quote unquote NDOT approved sites.
I think the one thing I see is really nice on 40 heading Greenfield. You see Eastern Hancock, you see the school districts too. It's a really nice sign. So there's three of them, I think, maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's very nice signage for just roads going in, you know.
Well, I think a nice sign would be a lot better than the rock or whatever you want to call it.
I'd like to see us get rid of the whole tombstone idea. Yeah. I mean,
It's gone, isn't it?
No,
No, we got it hid.
Oh.
I mean, we've got it stored. Got it stored away.
Well, when I mean gone, it's not out of
We
it.
took it
No,
off.
it's not on the road.
We took it off the road and we have it stored.
we were just thinking, if we couldn't come up with something that we could start there maybe.
Yeah.
Then work our way up.
Well, I think we can come up with something, because we do have, we did allocate $6,000 from Riverboat money for initial signage. And we were looking initially at the east side, because we felt like that was an underserved part, so maybe we can all communicate together and figure it out.
That would be great.
That proposal, something you can send.
I can send it to the entire project, send it to everybody.
If you're west and you're coming into Newcastle right before you get to Blue River, there's Optimus, Kiwanis, and some of those service groups have sent 5 or 6 of their seals. If you want to incorporate those into them, they pay for them, they furnish them. Out there right now, there's 2 posts, chain link fence, not very attractive. We seem to always plant a bush that grows up in front of it. We have to trim the bush.
We might need to take a look at all 4 directions.
I think we've got about 6 signs to put up. I mean, 1 to 3. I mean, 3 to 3. North, south, east, west.
So
1 to 3.
We'll have one each way.
Yeah.
But we had a nice, still have it, but we wanted a nice location for one.
Okay.
But that chain link fence is just not very attractive. It's not very.
Right.
I agree. Seeing another smaller community. Okay, that's just something that Stephanie she's great to work with. She's part of the Main Street. She really has a great idea. We want to do some of that side of town. So we'll hold off on the rock.
Well, it's there. I mean, it needs some work done on it.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't be spruced up, but maybe we'll come up with something. That's all I have. I appreciate it. Thanks, Will.
Couple things, Brenda, we talked 2 or 3 weeks ago about unemployed, and there's a email out. Do we need to amend that ordinance and all that back pay? And
Yeah, we can do that on the next meeting.
next meeting, we'll get it all took care of. Okay, that will be great. The second thing, and nothing has to do with city council, I just got some phone calls and I'll talk, need a little advice from Aaron and all that, but that's at marijuana. And I know the news about 666. I had some phone calls that sort of blew my phone up one day and all that, and don't you laugh. Did you get a phone call, Kendra?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But anyway, they have a board, don't they, and all that, so it really needs to go in front of the.
Yeah, I mean, I
park
think,
board.
current director Vicky Bertram responded to that with some history, and I know I had a conversation with Dick Bauslag, who knows, I actually, Robert Indiana's assistant who I was talking with, I asked him about the #1 Newcastle painting, because a lot of people don't know he had a painting that had Newcastle on it, colors of the soil, Blue River, 38. Trying to figure out who owned it, if there were prints, and his assistant sent me to Dick Bauslag because he thought he knew more about it. So, I think that, we all are aware that we live in a very conservative community, a community that I think shooed Robert Indiana away back in the 70s, honestly. That's part of it. And I don't think there's a reason to get upset, but I would suggest people call the Art Association.
That's what I.
Get an explanation, and then from there,
Yeah, I represent the citizens, and I told them I'd bring it up, and when we bring it up at the council meeting, I know you had it in the paper, and they said they read the paper, but didn't quite understand it and stuff, so.
Well, there's some other things there, the same emblems, RRR, or letters.
Yeah.
I don't get what they are.
if they're not into reading, we are giving a program at the library April 14th, I think, about our trip and the whole Robert Indiana connection. And so I'll make a point to touch on it there. So if they want to show up about half hour early with picket signs, make sure they're warm.
Well, they made me feel really good. The lady said, "You know what 666 stands for?" I said, "Yeah, we don't even need to go there."
Yeah, I think there's a lot more they could be upset about.
Yeah, so that's all we got.
I think it's April 14th. One of the speakers you think I'd know, but it's part of the bicentennial program. The library is doing a lot of series on local history. I think Rick Toppin's speaking this week.
Yeah.
And so this is part of that Thursday. So this is part of that, but it's in April. Bauslag will not be there.
That's all we got.
I'll start out me first. I want to thank everyone for the well wishes. Totally didn't plan on having a heart attack. Got a month out here. UMS guys are fantastic. I contacted the chief and make sure he passed on what all they did for me. When I arrived out the emergency room, there was no room. They actually had to treat me in the hallway. And she told me to take x-rays and get me stabilized. Dr. Zimmerman is awesome. She had to be in the army or something, I'm telling you. And she saved my life. We need to appreciate what we have. The staff out there was fantastic. This isn't me. I'm a tough guy. I put on my big boy pants every day. But I was very intimidated. Found out what nitro was like. I blew my ears off.
Nice headache.
Yeah, great headache. We left at 12:14. So big display clocking back to the vehicle. Pulled in at Reed at 12:39. They were booking. Good thing they did. People at Reed Hospital were unbelievable. Met us, got me going. I actually got to watch the procedure on the screen. As soon as they put the stent in, I had 99% blockage. Elephants jumped off my chest, felt my arms. Thought I had a stiff neck for 2 weeks. Front of my neck, it all left. Guys, I was basically told it could be anything from a toe ache to a toothache. So how are you supposed to know? Just don't take any chances. Just don't know. Woke up Friday morning, Saturday morning, former student was cleaning out my driveway. Guess I didn't want to catch him working the snow floor. Laid off the sidewalk. That's my account. Had so many people stop by and call, I just, almost to the point where you get embarrassed. Meant a lot. Talked to the mayor. You know, we've done some things in here as a council that I directly benefited from. The equipment, EMS, radio system that we now have. The mayor explained that all to me. It's unbelievable. We were so blessed in this community. And, I know Kathy appreciates it. I appreciate every one of them, really do.
Yeah, we're glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here.
Sure.
The city means a lot to me. I think everyone knows. I lived here all but 6 years of my life. Just turned 64. Almost didn't make 64. So appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you all. Love my community. Go on with business for the city. Land bank, we received our first check for selling the property. We sold one of the lots, $1,500. I asked Mike if he would take a few minutes to explain what's going on with the property committee. There's a lot going on, so Mike, if you would please.
It's been right at a year since we started the land bank, I guess. And we've been going through the process, bylaws and all the committee appointments and things like that. And that took a while. And we thought we had things rolling last spring when we asked the county for some properties they were going up for sale. And we had 4 that had homes on them, and we thought those could be turned over pretty quick, but they didn't get them out of the online process. So we didn't end up getting those. But we've done one property, as Jerry said, we've closed on it about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And we've got 2 more in process. One's a lot on Grand Avenue, and one's a home over on 20th Street. And those are both in process. It should be, the home I think closes the 15th. And Joel's working on the Grand Avenue lot. And we've got one other home that was on the BEP list, and we thought was just going to be a tear down, and we have a gentleman interested in that. And I want to thank Kendra and the mayor for taking all the applications for these properties. She gets a lot of phone calls on that, on top of her other business. Thank Joel, and then Kenny in the building inspector department. We've been using them a lot. The main idea of this is to get these in the hands of somebody that's going to take care of them, not somebody from California that's just going to sit on it and it's going back to the commissioner's cell again. We want those properties taken care of, and that's the other thing in the application process, that we're looking to make sure their taxes are paid up, they don't have any back taxes. We're talking to the building inspector department to see if they've had any code violations on those properties for the interested owners. So it's going pretty well, and I think we've got a good process going now, and we're going to ask the county commissioner for 9 other properties that they have. The city still has a lot of vacant lots. We don't have too many homes in the city to market, but we've got for sale signs now that have the land bank information on them, phone number. That's Kendra's phone number at the office. So she's getting all those calls. But we've had some interesting interactions with some of the people that have been interested in these properties. So it's a good process, and I think we'll really get moving stronger as the year goes on.
Is the county by chance interested in putting the courthouse annex with the land bank?
Kind of asked if they,
Yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there.
I asked, when they were gonna put them up for sale, and they said they were going out for appraisals, which we all thought they already
The
had.
legends have appraisals, more appraisals, sorry.
More appraisals.
Actually, the one on 20th Street, had 3 bids on it.
Four and
Four?
three
Wow.
bids over.
Higher than what
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the price went for. I mean, kind of got into, more on it.
And we are looking at the lots, the adjacent property owners, letting them have the choice of whether or not to buy it or not. So things are moving.
Yeah.
And Mike's been very busy. He's kind of heading up the properties committee, so been really busy. Greg, I sent you guys a message about filling Dennis's spot. So
I thought we did that already. That's not.
Mark Cronk filled another
Oh, okay.
council position spot.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
2-3 months ago.
yeah. So we need to think of someone else to take Dennis's spot that does have to be within the city limits. So if you know anyone who would have time, we meet on the third Thursday at 5 o'clock each month. And if we go beyond an hour, it's been a really hot day. It usually has been 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So
Let's try to come up with somebody by next meeting.
yes, please do, because Dennis and Kathy has found a property in Virginia, West Virginia, and their house is pretty much sold already. So that's where we are. And I'd like to thank Dennis publicly for serving as our president. He was really busy with organizing all of this and really moving along, so we owe him a big thanks for getting that all organized. I'd like to put that forward too. Now my Jerry Debbie Downer moment. 19 more, I've talked about that salvage yard, now junkyard, for a couple of years now. I'd like to challenge or ask all the council members to drive by there. 19th Wood, you can't miss it. It's like a barricade in front of you now. You don't even know what's on the other 4.5 acres. That is an R1 zone residential area. It's not supposed to have any businesses, correct?
Was that at one time, the junkyard for automobiles and all that, was years ago? Do you remember that? Or is that on Thornburg I'm thinking of?
It shouldn't be, because it's R1.
The only way it could be R1 and have something there is if it was something that was there before it was made R1.
You know, back in 1968, my grandmother tried to put an antique store in the garage where I live right now, and she was told she couldn't work.
I think it's a business right now, so about 20 years ago.
But what I'd like you to think when you go by there, would you want that out your back door, out your front door? It's mineral
That's
tents.
what I've seen.
You know, I go by the Pierce's and City Tire Store and Pope's every day now. We don't want that crap coming into our city. You put it as nice a sign as you want to out there.
No, I agree. We had to go out quite a
That's
ways.
county.
We had to go out quite a ways
We
to
can't do
get
anything
that.
with it. Just like Brown Road,
Yeah.
we can't do anything with that.
We had to go out quite a ways to find a decent location, put a sign that would look halfway decent.
Mayor, I know your hands are tied on that. I understand. My goodness. The person, the owner is purposely blockaded in front of that. Vehicles are parked out front again. That's a big semi-trailer up in front, next to the building. And I can just see that whole 4.5 acres of property that this person owns now turning into a brownfield that we're going to be dealing with 30 years, 50 years down the road. As I said, I wouldn't want that out my front door. I wouldn't want it out my back door, and I don't think anyone in here would want that. So I'd like to ask each of you to go out and take a look at it. So I'm really frustrated, because that's nothing but R1 in that whole area. This person lives out of town.
Well, we sent him citation, move everything behind the fence, and he did that, so he's moved it back out.
Yeah, it's back out. in front.
But he did move it behind it one time.
Go back up there tomorrow. We've done that once with Dave, and there was a grandfather close or something. That's been, or something,
It's a mess. It's
Oh, we
just a
can do it.
mess, it really is. And I'm getting complaints from those who live there in the neighborhood, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all.
Really, you can start at 27th Street. And go out.
That's where the
27th Street, vehicles are sitting on rims.
Yeah, the east side is.
Yeah, one side that's city, and one side's county.
Yeah, so we have a
So
car.
27th.
Out Brown Road, out Brown Street or Brown Road.
27th and Broad.
That's the same one.
1918 Thornburg.
27th Street east of Banks County. On the south side.
No, that's
On the
Ward
east
One,
side.
on Ward One's on the south side. I got voters
On the
that live
north
over there
side.
by City Tire.
Yeah, but on the east side of that, by City Tire, going down the east, going down 27, that's county.
27th Street.
Sure enough, on the east side is, when they'll pick up their trash.
It's about right. Yeah, that's all.
Wow.
That's why I said, that's why I said the mayor's hands are really tied with that.
No.
The east side's there by, with the tire barn, or not tire barn, but the
City
tire
Tire.
barn is county, and all those houses going down behind there is all county.
Is that around 27? There's houses down there
27th Street.
that vote in city election.
I can't help it, but that's technically, if you look at being, it's in the county.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Republican.
Okay, let's proceed. Jerry, do you have any
Well,
more?
that's it.
Mr. Dickens?
I'm just thankful for working with all you guys, and I'm super grateful that even though Rex, and Mark, and Jerry, all who I've thought about last month or so, have tried to escape this table, they keep coming back. Work's not done. Don't really have anything that I can think of, but Mr. Guffey and I will be going to Indianapolis tomorrow night. I think we probably both have some things in mind that we're going to talk to Senators Lysing and Ratz and Representative Saunders about. They're all three going to allegedly be in attendance as of right now, but if you guys have anything that you want brought up, I mean, I think the first couple times I went to this AIM municipal dinner was more just for the keynote and to meet people, but now every time before we go, I reach out to those representatives' offices because I've seen everybody else's representatives there except for ours. So I think it's a good time to sit down at the table and have conversations. So if you think of anything that needs to be brought up on behalf of the city, let us know and we'll make sure it gets done. But I don't think I have anything else.
Appreciate Aaron.
Wait till we report back.
I want to say something about the land bank and how much I appreciate from sitting on this board for a long time. People like, Mike, Ray Hamilton's, and, I went to meetings at their house about this. And for you guys to move forward so quickly, 10 months pretty much, you guys did phenomenal. I mean, and I know the mayor is appreciative of all this too. Joel, thank you for your time and efforts, and it's huge for the city. Just keep the wheels going. Anything we can do, obviously don't hesitate to bring it up. Thank you from somebody who sat here and watched the wheels spin and spin, and now they finally dug in, put it into work. Lee, tell your crew thanks. Great job on the streets. They worked hard.
Okay. The only thing I have, and we'll, I'm gonna ask Joel to do this, and we'll have it written up for next meeting, and then we can discuss it and vote on it. We have talked about this before, but the sidewalk repair and replacement program, right now, we allocated some of $15,000. I want to see that raised to $50,000. This comes out of riverboat funds. And then right now, we pay half the cost of the repair, or $500, whichever is less. I want to raise that to 75% of the project repair, or $1,000, whichever is less. And I think that reflects kind of what Mr. Guffey asked about last fall, and we can talk about it, vote on it. I think that would hopefully jumpstart the program, and siding the cost of concrete and everything else has went up, so that may help us to keep it in line with the times. And then I've asked Mr. Barker, and we'll bring those at next meeting. We'll vote on. We'll bring them up for a couple of other items we may consider for the ARP. All of us have talked about it at different times.
I think on the topic of sidewalks, I've been wrestling with, I know that we have talked multiple times about responsibility being on the property owner. But sometimes I think our main thoroughfares, we might be doing ourselves a disservice waiting on them. I don't know that there's a fair necessarily way to do it, but just think about that as far as sidewalks along. I mean, your main streets, your Bundys, that people are normally walking from one end of town to the
I
other.
think this gives people a good opportunity to participate. I don't think we can, I don't know how we justify
Right. That's
going
what,
along Bundy Avenue, replacing all the
Yeah.
sidewalk, while on 21st Street, their sidewalk stays the same. They don't have the money to do all those.
that's been my
Now, one of the things I gave to Mr. Barker was replacing all the sidewalk on Main Street from, was it M Avenue? M Avenue down to I, because that's all city-owned.
yeah.
That's Little League and Babe Ruth, that's all
Yeah.
city-owned
Yeah.
property there, so that's our responsibility.
Right. To be on the east side.
We can do that with ARP money, but I think going out and.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, that's been my sticking point is I don't feel great about it, but I also don't feel great about just sitting and waiting, so.
But maybe it's
just
just a case
chew
where
on. Yeah.
somebody goes out all along, a particular area and says, hey, listen, why don't you sign up for the sidewalk program?
Right.
Because you can, that's gonna take a big chunk out of somebody's sidewalk project.
For sure.
So.
Yep.
And we may need to start citing some people. And that's how, if you want the sidewalks better, you cite people and you make them fix the sidewalk. Now, that's not a very nice thing to do, but that, eventually, that's what it comes to.
Right.
At least not park on
Yeah, that'd be good too, wouldn't it, Mike? All right, well, that's all I have, Your Honor. I'll turn it over to you for you and.
The sidewalk, if you do it for one person,
I know.
and they find out that the city paid for it,
They're all coming.
then they're saying, well, why didn't, ours is bad, ours is terrible.
Right.
Why didn't you do ours?
Yeah.
Now,
I tried to lead with that so that we didn't get stuck on that.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't clear enough.
but here's a perfect example of what you're saying. Indiana Avenue and Main Street. They're on all four corners right there. There's not one legal ADA sidewalk
Right.
on all four corners there. We got parade go by there. I mean,
Well, then it's
a
great
lot
that
of people walk going by there, going down the.
right. It's great that we get the ADA corners, but doesn't really do anybody in a mobility chair any good if they have to stop because the sidewalk.
No, this is for blind people. This is for blind people. This isn't only for.
And all four.
We don't want to go
corners-
here.
All four corners are owned by businesses who should
Yeah.
take part in the
Right,
community
yeah.
and good neighbors. So, I mean,
Actually, me and Kenny Dale's been waiting for 30 years for sidewalks, so I don't know what everybody's complaining. Right.
well, let's move on. Didn't go on this for a long time.
Chief, you have anything?
I got a couple things. We're within about $5,000 of reaching our goal for our third canine. I don't know the exact amount, but we're somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. Get checks there. I just wanted to give you guys an update on it. And then body cams for the council. I don't know if you want to do that now, or if you want
Go right for it.
to have at it for it.
I'm gonna try to keep this under an hour.
If it goes that long, the money was great, it's just gonna try and grab these numbers.
I think it's the opposite might be true. Yeah, 4 or 5.
You're welcome. Last one.
I'll start out by saying, I don't know how you have room to get anything else on your vest.
There's a lot of truth to that, Mayor. All right, so I will try to be as brief as possible. So one of the things Chief Schofield and I talked about quite a bit over the last 4 years was looking at possibly implementing a body-worn camera program for Newcastle Police Department. Probably early 2018, we looked at it for the first time, and the cost was tremendous in any way of looking at it. Issue that we ran into primarily is by and large, cameras are cheap, storage is astronomical. So when we would start looking at storage, especially in that early 2018 area, we were really looking at either asking the city to purchase somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $400,000 for us to store and maintain that audio video, which it has to be stored and maintained because we have Freedom of Information Act requirements to be able to provide that to court, be able to provide that, in certain request situations. So it simply was not attainable. So we had kind of held off. We continued to monitor it, watch the technology. I think one thing we probably all know with technology is as it becomes more prevalent, typically the costs begin to come down. So something else Chief Schofield said repeatedly is we're going to watch for federal money. As we have all seen over the last couple of years, we've seen some very heightened tensions in other cities around the country in interactions between law enforcement and the citizens that they serve. And as we've watched a lot of this play out at some point, there's been a lot of talk at the federal government level about mandating or implementing body cameras for law enforcement. So we've talked numerous times that if this becomes a federal mandate, there will have to be federal dollars put forward that would allow us, if you're going to require every police officer to have a camera, they're going to have to put money forward for that to happen. So we've tried to continue to monitor that as we move forward. And one of the things, by no means, you guys control the budgets, obviously, but I don't know if you were aware, in your ARP funds, it specifically says body-worn cameras can be purchased for law enforcement. So that tells me a couple of things. If the federal government is putting that in there, when honestly there's not really a ton of provision from my understanding that law enforcement qualifies for, and we have another round of that coming, I won't be shocked if we see some legislation come in the not too distant future that all law enforcement agencies have to have body cams by, and obviously there'll be a suspense date or a no later than date. So in doing that, we started looking at body cameras because I think this could potentially be the federal government saying, here's money you can buy body cameras with, and then if you don't, say, well, you have to have them by this year or something of that nature. So we've looked at some different body cam programs. So I gave you 3 handouts tonight. One of those, the first one I would like to bring to your attention is a UNLV body-worn camera on police research brief that was done back in July of 2015. I'm not going to go through and read this to you. You were all
more than capable of doing that on your own. But there's a tremendous amount of, I probably picked this one, but it's got a lot of diagrams in it so I can understand it. So there's a tremendous amount of research in here. The reason I think this was interesting was it has a lot of requests from the civilians where this was done on what their opinion was on officers should wear body cams, should not wear body cams. In this type of situation, it will change the interaction with law enforcement, or it will change the interaction with the civilian. There's a tremendous amount of research in there. So I wanted to provide that to you just as an opportunity for you to look through on your own or whenever it's convenient. The second thing that I have is a quote for Axon, which is one of the body-worn camera manufacturers. And this is actually a quote that the Sheriff's Department requested. I believe the date is on here. August of 11 is when this quote was issued. It was August 11th of 21. So I think that's important for one, because there's a strong possibility that that quote would actually change if we were to request it again. So if we look at that quote, the cost to implement, I believe it was around 30 body cams, it was $189,943.59. So with that quote, a little shy of $200,000, that provides the body cameras and that provides unlimited storage for a 5-year period. At the end of that 5-year period, then you would have to negotiate some type of storage fee through Axon, or you would have to look at re-entering a new contract. So that is a competitor's cost. The other paper you have is the Watchguard V300. And so that's implemented by Motorola Solutions. So Motorola's been around for a long time, obviously making initially communications equipment. So they are now a strictly law enforcement company. So in addition to communications equipment, they now have purchased body-worn cameras, in-car cameras. Our Spillman mobile data system that we use in our cars are all purchased or have been purchased by Motorola. So they roll all of this up under Motorola. So the thing that is really nice about this Watchguard V300 camera is that it interfaces directly to the system that we already use to write all of our reports. So for example, if we were sent to a call at 227 North Main Street, that call populates in our computer system. The officers wearing those cameras, there's a GPS embedded in the camera, then respond to that location, they take that call. And when they go back in service, later on when they dock that camera, those video files will automatically leave that camera and go into the correct call that those officers were on and into the files. So that's really nice from a simplicity or an ease of use for the officers that are wearing these cameras, because one of the things that we have found, I've talked to a lot of other agencies wearing body-worn cameras, is a lot of times, the officers have to go in and they have to name this file, and then they have to download this, and they have to find it on the computer, and they have to store it in this bank. And I think we all know with any technology, the simpler it is to use, the more likely it is to be used consistently and effectively. So we really like the fact that this will integrate to the system that we already have. The other thing that we like, trying to be good stewards of the city's money, is that this is a total of $92,814, and that's to purchase 29 body cameras, which would be 27 officers is what we have assigned to the road division right now. So every uniformed police officer would be equipped with a body-worn camera, as well as Chief Schofield and I, since we are in uniform pretty much every day. And if we're going to require our officers to wear them, we want to make sure that we both have them to wear as well. So it would be a total of 29 cameras, $92,814 would be the total cost on that.
Does that cover all the storage you need?
Unlimited data storage for 5 years. So
how durable, what's the lifetime of one of these cameras?
So with this program, this is a 5-year program for that cost of $92,814. In that 5-year window, if our officers forget a body camera and left it on the roof of a car, they replace those cameras, no questions asked. If they have a foot pursuit, fall in a river, they're waterproof. But something happens to damage that camera, they replace them, no questions asked. At year 3, they will come in and do a 100% software update on the computer or on the technology on the cameras. So the V300 is currently the newest camera. If in that 3 years they developed a V400, they would just replace us to new cameras at that point. In addition to that, that is the individual cameras for every officer. That is a docking station for them to have at home, because they have to have the ability to charge it, make sure it's fully charged while they're on duty. That is also a docking station at headquarters, so that at the end of every shift, they can dock their cameras, download all the video files. That is 6, I believe, extra batteries. So in the event, the cameras will have about a 12-hour runtime, which is more than significant to get through a shift. But in the event that we have a SWAT call out, a prison riot, something that has the potential to stretch far beyond those time frames, we would have extra batteries that would be there to be charged and ready. So if we have officers still on duty nearing the end of their camera usage, they can swap the battery. That's actually another nice feature of these cameras. A lot of the cameras have a sealed battery and have no ability to have interchangeable batteries, and these do have that. That's also the mounting bracket for every officer to have that mounted on their outer vest carrier. So what we would like to look at, in addition to this being, so the 92,814, you can look through here, this is broke down, you can see all the itemized things. One of the things about this, and this is where I completely defer to all of you, is the contract term on this is 5 years. This can actually be broken down into monthly payments, annual payments, or we can pay for it all at once if that's something that is even feasible for the city to entertain. So they have here on that, with a 5-year contract term, that would be $1,537 monthly, or it would be $18,444 annually, and that would be paid over 5 years. At the end of that 5 years, we own all of the equipment. What we do not own is unlimited data storage anymore. So what we would have to look at is either purchasing some type of data package through Motorola, or one of the things Motorola has already said. So if you look at the pricing, they're less than half of what competitors are. And so one of the things Motorola is almost hoping is that at the end of every 5-year contract, departments are looking at going back in, because we all know a 5-year time frame is a very long time frame in the technology world. So who knows what would be up or available at that time, but we would own these cameras. We could continue to run these cameras for as long as the life of the cameras would be. And we would just have to look at some type of data storage plan.
Chances are 5 years from now, by that time, they're gonna mandate that every officer in the United States has a body cam.
I think that's highly likely.
Yeah, so.
Should we take a look at that at the next finance meeting?
Yeah, that's what we would look at in the finance committee.
How are these activated?
So these are activated, these actually have two different, I'll break something. So these are actually activated 2 different ways. So if you look at your photograph, there's a button in the center. You guys unfortunately can't see it. I didn't want to waste all our coloring because it's expensive. So there's a red light. So when they press that center button, that red light will come on and that shows that it's active. There's also a red light on the top of the camera that will show that it's active. That actually, if you read through the study, it kind of does 2 things. For one, the officer obviously knows they've activated their camera on whatever call that they're on. And we will obviously have a department SOP that will provide strict guidance on when they have to activate their cameras. And that'll be something that we will publish. That's also something that Watchguard provides, is they will actually work with us to create our department SOP. And then that's something that we would have you review before we implement it, Mr. Harvey. So, but they can manually activate that camera, and then it will record. They press once to record, they press twice, the camera will vibrate and stop, and the lights will go off. You do have the ability to take the lights off. Some of the night shift guys obviously would rather not have like a bright red light shining in the center of their chest. So we can deactivate that. But in a lot of daytime operation, the light not only tells you the officer knows it's on, but also lets the public know that it's on. And that's actually a good thing in a lot of those interactions, because a lot of studies have found that people tend to try not to commit crimes in front of uniformed police officers. They're even less likely to do some of the silly stuff they do when they know it's all being caught on video and it's going to go in front of the judge. So there's obviously a huge potential here. We fortunately have not been subject to a lot of civil liability, but there's obviously a potential here that it protects not only our officers from liability, it protects the city from liability. And in all honesty, the way I look at it is something that I think helps not only the police, but also the public try to encourage and maintain professional interactions with one another. So I think it is a huge win. There is a second type of recording. It's called record after the fact. So within the limitations of the camera, because obviously it has a storage capability on that camera will be recording continuously. It will not record audio. It will only be recording video in the background. So that is one of the features we like about this camera, because the state of Indiana did pass a body-worn camera law, I believe, last year. And in passing that law, It basically says if an officer knowingly or intentionally fails to activate a body-worn camera, they can be charged with an 8 misdemeanor. This camera basically makes that physically impossible because it is continuously recording without audio, but that video would still be there. Now, that video never stores to anything, but say, for example, an officer makes a traffic stop and a suspect immediately jumps out with a gun, and they obviously have to respond to that critical incident. What would happen is we would be notified we had a situation that was not being recorded that just occurred. Chief Schofield and I could then go into the system and say, create this as a video event, and then that video event could be logged into whatever evidence that it needed to be held in.
Mine still.
Yes, we would never recover the audio, but we would at least have.
Audio is only on when you have.
That is correct. So we would have the.
That gives you a good fail safe, like you say, if somebody, you have to jump out of the car immediately, you don't have.
Correct.
You still have where you would be without it.
Yeah, it's still way better to have video than have nothing. So it does have that record after the fact feature, which said is basically would prevent an officer from ever being in a situation where they could say, you didn't activate your camera, and say, we can still recover that. The only time that that could potentially not happen is if that camera was full, because it only can store, that record after the fact is only running in the background, if that makes sense.
So basically, you feel good about, if we did this one, you would feel very good. We had a good
Mark, another thing
situation.
is, we can have this hooked up to where, when our lights are activated, that it'll start recording too. We can't go as far as having a switch, I think, can't maybe switch put on our holsters on this model.
We can. So there's
It's
actually,
a lot more money.
there's numerous activations out there. You can actually have a decibel activation, so if it detects a noise over a certain decibel, the camera automatically comes on and records. Obviously, with the intent being that if it detects gunfire, it starts recording. You can have holster activation, so there's a sensor they mount to the holster. As soon as the weapon's drawn from the holster, the camera starts recording. You can have light activation, so as soon as you activate your emergency lights, camera starts recording. There's a lot of different features, but within those features, that price tag obviously is going to continue to go up. I'm not a fan of holster activation for the simple fact IMPD went with a holster activation feature on a different camera system, but with a holster activation feature, that's a sensor that mounts on the holster, and honestly, they just kept breaking all of them, getting in and out of the cars. They were constantly trying to fix that. The only activation that we looked at, in addition to the manual activation, was the emergency lights. That every time they activate the lights in the car, it would automatically start recording. And I believe, don't hold me to this, but I think those recordings jump back 30 seconds. So they activate the lights, camera's going to jump back 30 seconds and capture all of that.
Is that something you can add on after the fact, in the middle of the contract?
I would have to check into that. I think it is something we could
So I would
add
assume
on.
you would feel good about starting with the manual activation, and then if we wanted to look at it, we could add that on.
Sure, I'm sure that's something that can be done. Because I know within the settings, if you will, of the camera system, there's a lot of different configurations. It may be where they have to come out and do something, but I'm sure that that's something that can be done.
You said center position, location on the desk, where would that be exactly? Are they compatible with the vests that we have?
They are, so they come with a mounting bracket, and I apologize, I actually had a camera that I meant to bring, and it's actually mounted on my vest. So our vests have a zipper down the center, and they have what they call MOLLE webbing on the vest. So this comes with a bracket that mounts to their MOLLE, it's very secure, and then the camera actually snaps onto that mount. So the officers would basically have it mounted offset to one side or the other of their chest, depending on where best works for them. The mayor's absolutely correct. I had to find where the best location was where I could still access spare magazines and medical equipment, and because there's only so much space on this vest. So
Once it's attached to it, it's secure.
yes, it's very secure.
Joel, if we went with something like this, we probably have to come up with a new ordinance covering just basics. Right?
Yeah, it'd probably be covered in the SOP.
Yeah.
Their rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as recording in public, or as far as adopting a body cam program, I don't think we would have to have anything as far as a local ordinance.
Yeah.
Because most of that is
From
I will say one thing, that there's a lot of agencies, local ordinance wise, that are charging fairly decent amounts of money for copies of the audio and video, instead of just handing out free, because
I think.
most
Yes.
departments are gonna have a single person that is in charge of.
Well, that's where I was kind of going with that. If we had to set up fees if lawyer A wanted to use it against
Yeah, I mean,
lawyer B. And
there are fairly specific rules on what recordings can be provided to the public upon request. And I guess the question I have, we have the ability to, I guess, redact people from the video, like if you have a juvenile in it.
So there's, and that's all part of, so from a city ordinance standpoint, we would like to see an ordinance passed if we adopt this that maxes that out, because that's gonna prevent some of the minor requests we get. Oh, I heard there was a pursuit last night, and we would like a video of all 7 officers that were involved in it. That's very, very time consuming, because when we comply with the Freedom of Information Act request, we have to go in and redact juveniles, certain personal information, and there's a list of things that we can't just say, oh, you wanted a copy of the video, release that to the public. With regards of evidentiary value, because the prosecutor's office runs on the same Spillman system that we do, they will already have access to all of our body-worn camera footage. We've already spoken with the prosecutor's office that we won't have to provide them anything because they already have the ability to access and view that.
does the county have a system?
Body-worn camera system? They do not. They're looking at getting one. They've not adopted anything yet.
I will say that, he sends one to us in Beaver County, only 2 departments don't have a body cam program right now.
That was my next question.
And I told Greg from the beginning, I was trying to hold off as long as I could, hoping this federal money would come around, but I think that they're pulling us a trick with this ARP money. Like, they don't say anything about police, they just accept for it. This money can be used for body cams.
Oh, I think we can get this taken care of. We'll bring it up the next finance committee meeting, and
We'll have
then the next meeting or two, we'll have a.
I tell you, it's gonna protect everybody.
Yeah, I think it's a great
gonna help
idea.
with transparency. Obviously, nobody's been out here doing police work like we do, but I'll be honest with you, we all make mistakes. And the biggest complaint I get up here is the officer didn't put in there what I said. Well, if you're trying to multitask and you have 3 or 4 things, sometimes you do not get exactly what they said. But that, I've had people actually try to file formal complaints because of one little sentence, because it didn't fit what they think they needed to have. Or my wife said this, and then I figured out if she would have said this a different way, we wouldn't be in as much trouble, especially on accident. So it'll allow the officers to go back and say, no, that's exactly what he said. I've got it.
In researching and preparing for this, one of the things Chief Schofield and I talked about throughout the last 4 years, of the complaints we get, which in all honesty are not many, I would say a very high percentage of them are very frivolous, with limited work in investigating it. I've talked to the agencies that have body-worn cameras already. We're completely surrounded by them. I don't, Delaware County, Muncie, Greenfield, Rushville, IMPD now all has body cams. ISP all has body cams. We're pretty much surrounded everywhere. You talk to the administrations that have had body cams for a couple of years, and their complaints are virtually zero, or when they get complaints, they're legitimate complaints that need to be addressed and taken care of for the public. But in the last couple of years, right, wrong, or indifferent, one of the things that I think you are seeing the public demand is increased accountability and transparency with their law enforcement agencies. And I think this takes a very substantial step towards providing that for our citizens. So.
Just another step along the line of professionalism that this department's always held a high standard.
Well, it's like I said at the start, we've made expenditures, it's benefited other departments. And it paid off me in a personal situation. And I think we've been pretty good as executive leadership, mayor, and you and Mark as presidents and Jeff as vice presidents.
We'll get on this in the next 2 meetings and have some time.
And I guess just to give you an idea, it's at least, when they said an 8 to 10 week lead time, if we were to call tomorrow and say, what are these, it's going to be 8 to 10 weeks before we physically have it.
And our price is probably pretty close to what is on here, since this was on the
This quote was
17th of December. So
correct. Yeah, nothing's going to have changed. And I actually still have one of their cameras. They haven't even called to ask for it back yet. I've talked to them numerous times. So they knew that we were going to be presenting it as soon as we could. And
All right, we'll get on it and work out.
so, all right, I appreciate your time. If any of you have any questions, let me know.
I've found very many companies that hold the price over 10 days.
Well, we're hoping it's the same as it was.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else?
No.
Keith? Keith? Anything, Ken? All right. Well, we have an empty seat there tonight. Dan Denny, Thursday, was stepping out of the truck after the ice storm and but before the snow and fell at the cemetery, opened the gate and broke his arm in half in between his elbow and his shoulder. And he kind of looks like Rex today.
I bet he's in more pain than I am.
Well, he's got his arm secure in a sling, but he said he'll forget and he'll try to raise his arm. And this part of he'll feel this bone move, but the arm doesn't move. So it's swollen so bad they can't operate until this next Thursday or later this week. So keep Dan in your thoughts and prayers. Just stepped off his truck all night, and I hate that for him. He's such a nice guy, works hard and does a good job. So I hate to lose him. We're swamped at the cemetery, and it'll take a lot to fill his shoes, actually. I want to say thanks to the police department. I feel like they did the best job at this snowstorm than we've ever done. They had a plan that they started as soon as the rain stopped, and within 15 minutes of the time that the sleet started, they were throwing salt and stayed with it for like 48 hours. It rotated shifts, and so I feel like they did an outstanding job with the snow removal. And I know the water department was in on that, but then they get called out Thursday afternoon for a water main break on Washington Street. And we had all planned out. The water department would take care of the first aid unit, and, certain places, and then they have a water main break. So you're only as good as like playing C, D, or E, because plan A doesn't always work out the way you want to. So appreciate you guys this snowstorm, and I'm hoping that this is the last snowstorm that we have this year, or the worst. So keep Dan in your prayers and your thoughts. Anything, Dave?
Anything else?
Brendan? Kendra? Doug, anything else? Congratulations. I appreciate everything you guys do. I didn't want to say too much to the guy, but man, if we could add another shift, we could not only take people to the doctor, but we'll be able to take them home from the doctors also, which would be nice someday. Anything else? Anything, Greg? And Lee?
Other than just, my guy's done a great job. And I
He did.
appreciate that. And Greg Phipps' 2 or 3 help, and a couple of guys from the.
Yeah, there's other departments.
Yes, the water department, and wastewater down there, helped, a couple of people helped out just in that area down there. And so it was a true team effort, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah. And then I want to reiterate what Jerry said, that I'm telling you, that probably a police car pulled up at your house first. When they get the call, we send the whole cavalry. We send the police, fire, EMS, and I would put our guys up against anybody in the country. When you take Bodie, that his wife literally was lucky to be alive today, and he's not much for saying thanks, or Bodie Jr. Even though your wife had an accident also, but for Junior to step up and say, I don't know if everybody got that email or not, but it was a heart-sent email saying if it wasn't for his department and EMS and police, he probably wouldn't have his wife today. So they truly, we don't give enough thanks. So I'll always tell them thanks every chance you get. That's all I have.
Okay, anybody, Mr. Murphy, you want a few more minutes?
Unfortunately. You guys didn't meet last time, right?
Correct.
Now, what, before I forget,
No bank time.
before I forget, we have a position, Mr. Murphy?
Yes?
We have a position, I believe, that we have to fill on one of the boards.
That was my first request.
Okay, go ahead.
Ball game tonight?
Not I know of. 5 o'clock somewhere. Ball game. Yeah.
You got a good ball game tomorrow night.
Girls game?
Girls game played at Hamilton Heights tomorrow night for the second championship.
Where is it?
See this old town. Yeah, we play Hamilton Heights.
I will move quick. Boar's Head is proposing an expansion of the processing facility. There was an article in last week's paper. So that's an expansion of the original processing facility. It doubles it, or nearly doubles it. So here are the stats of the expansion, and then I'll have a specific ask for this body. 136,000 square feet, $126 million investment, and 120 plus new jobs. And the jobs come online by June of '24. The incentive structure is very similar to the original incentive structure dating back to 2014, and it relies upon a body called the Economic Development Commission. It is different than the Economic Development Corporation. For the Economic Development Commission, there's a county EDC and there's a city EDC. And the appointments for the County Economic Development Commission, they're all appointed by the commissioners, 3 members. But recommendations come from the following bodies: the county commissioners, the county council, and the city council. And so the city council seat is vacant. It was held by Dick Myers. And Dick Myers passed in November of 2017. The last time this body met was in April of 17. So we don't meet very often. I was asked today by a county official, why didn't we take care of this ahead of time? And I said, well, we didn't know we needed it. And if I would have asked, you would have said why, and I would have said, I can't tell you. So here we are. I do have a recommendation for you.
Okay.
Mike Boyles.
All in favor, say aye.
Now, Mike Boyles, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
if it only meets every 6 years, that's fine.
No matter what the pay is, it's pretty good for me to get it.
On that, good thing.
Is there anybody here to be opposed to Mike Boyles? So I'll move
Are we all gonna go down his list?
I'll move we make Mike Boyles our
I'll second that motion.
You want to step out?
And we'll just do it all in favor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Item number 2, a quick update on the airport. There was a bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed, acronym is BILL. The airport is going to receive, as a result of this bipartisan infrastructure law, we're going to receive $795,000 over the next 5 years. It's $159,000 a year. The airport board voted to take the $159,000, its first installment, and take the apron, or the airport parking ramp, to its original size. I was here a few weeks ago, and I gave you a graphic, and I said, well, we only have enough money to build here. We'd really like to build here, but we're gonna build there. So the airport parking area, or apron, will be larger than what we initially thought. And then we're still planning on how the rest of the money is used. It's very similar to our normal funding, normal federal funding. There's quite a few restrictions. If it's not in our capital improvement plan or CIP, then it's gonna be difficult for us to use that money at the airport. And I will bring you a copy, because I know you're all really wanna see it. I'll bring you a copy of the capital improvement plan. We do that on an annual basis, and it looks at every 5 years. And so we just, the airport commission, just adopted that, at their January meeting. The AWAS, the automated weather reporting system, some infrastructure needed to be installed there, so appreciate the mayor, and some other folks got together and they made it happen. And so we're ready to receive that equipment. And I suspect in a few months, there will be a web link and a telephone number. And if you want the weather reporting from our airport, you'll be able to get it. But most importantly, pilots will be able to get it.
From
So
anywhere in the United States.
that will open up our airport to traffic that otherwise won't land here, because we are in a dead zone as it relates to weather reporting. That is a partnership between IU Health, Lifeline, and the City of Newcastle, and Board of Aviation. So that's good news. Moving over to 25th Street, former Firestone facility. So inside the fence is city-owned, outside the fence, what direction, Mayor? Behind?
East.
Thank you. I'm technically challenged when it comes to directions. That is owned by the County Redevelopment Commission. Last time I was here, I quickly reported that we were in negotiations on a transload facility. We're really close to signing the lease for inside the fence. So what that does is it takes that brownfield and it puts it in productive use with some investment in rail infrastructure where goods and I don't say services, but you can't ship services on rail. Goods can come in or go out via the rail infrastructure. That's a nice service to offer our local companies and the region in terms of logistics. And it also brings a piece of property back in terms of economic activity.
What's gonna happen with Corey? They're gonna replace the fence, put in new roadway, road.
The biggest infrastructure improvement there will be rail, and then he's talking about, I think the fence is in pretty good shape. But in terms of just a nice general cleanup in that area. It does have a deed restriction. It has an environmental deed restriction. That's not a surprise to anybody. We have to put that in the lease. We have to notify IDEM and a couple other federal agencies that we intend to lease this. So there'll be no subsurface. There won't be any disturbing below ground. The nice part about that piece of property is much of the foundation is there. And so it'll work well for this use.
So will there be some construction of it?
Limited. We've got the EDC newsletter, so that's kind of a look back over the last year, and then a look forward. We use that to raise private support. We appreciate the City of Newcastle's investment. We are a public-private organization. So if you have any questions in terms of what's in the newsletter, feel free to ask. The other document that I gave you is, it's got some highlights on it. The word of the year at the EDC is entrepreneurship. What do I mean by that? Well, how can we as a community be more intentional in creating an environment that supports small businesses and new businesses to grow and flourish? The fact that Boar's Head is announcing is fantastic. We want to continue to be able to respond to projects like that, but we also want to be able to respond to the small businesses and the startups. And so it's a longer term play, because we're looking at the environment, and some of it's culture. You know, how do we as a community respond to risk? How do we treat failure? Because sometimes failure, if it's responsible failure, it necessarily shouldn't get the scarlet letter, if you know what I mean. You learn a lot sometimes when you fail as much as when you succeed. And having an environment, and also looking at our toolbox. How can we help startups? How can we help small businesses? Because that's the lifeblood of the community. It's not at the expense of projects like Boar's Head or that size, but it's a dual track. And so we're gonna do a plan, but it's gonna be an action plan. Give us a low-hanging fruit, give us the mid goals, give us the long-term goals as a community. It's more than the EDC. As a community, how do we create an environment?
Just don't put 666 on the side of the building.
Noted. Broke my train of thought. Ready. You all supported our participation in Ready. You have a framework for how the state, so I'm now referring to this. You have a framework in how the state is going to evaluate projects. Our region received $15 million. How much of that is going to come back to the geography of Henry County? I have no idea. We've been asked to come up with our top 2 projects. Our top 2 projects.
You turned in 30.
I know. I'm going to need the mayor's help, and I'm going to need a representative from this council's help. Probably be the president of the council. Just like Ready, it's going to be fast. You're going to hate me when I tell you when we need to have the decision done by. But it's consistent with the program, and she who writes the check gets to write the rules. I am not she, I'm not related to she. She is in Indianapolis. Okay? You get my drift.
Dealt with she before.
Okay? All right. So, if those 2 projects don't qualify, don't worry, we'll get to take another run at it. I could spend the rest of the evening, you don't want me to, talking about Ready. And how it's worked and maybe how it hasn't. We're going to benefit from it. I'm going to leave you with a positive, good things are going to happen. We had 15 million more for our region when we started. But I'll pause.
Corey, I think that'd be beneficial. You and Mayor Rex get together and come up with whatever to, and then explain it at that time process.
Yeah, and so we'll also be coordinating with the chief elected officials of the county as well.
Now, is that 2 for the whole county?
That's 2 for the whole county. 2 for the whole county.
2 more than we had, though.
That's exactly right.
And the county will benefit the city, and the city will benefit.
Well, I can, as a city resident by choice, I pay county taxes too. Right, but I live in the city.
Not my choice.
Yeah, but I do. I have to remind, not you all, but I have to remind some folks, cities in the county too.
We double dip a lot.
So, I appreciate your leadership. That fast decision will be made by the chief elected officials from the county, so that's the county council president, county commissioners. We won't have time to have a meeting, we just won't. And the foundation, the hospital will be involved. And I'm going to the people that contributed to our participation in this program. I have recommendations and thoughts, but at the end of the day, I think it's got to be the elected officials. I don't know whether we have play darts, joke, or arm wrestling. I don't know how we make that decision, but thank you for your support, and I know it's time to go, but do you have any questions? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Corey.
Okay, do we have any citizens? Please come forward.
Kind of got segued into, brought up signs and sidewalks. And then we got the transload thing thrown in on there. As far as signs go, I wrote a thing for the paper. I feel like we need to have some signs that direct truck traffic through town, especially when I see that there's trucks driving up and down Riley Road and they're not supposed to be there. like at all. So weight limit on Riley Road is 9 ton. That's how much just the tractor weighs. And we've got fully loaded trucks going down Riley Road, which is 80,000 pounds. I know this because I drive one. So going to the old Firestone plant and the main truck roads through town, maybe we could put that on the sign that says, hey, go this way to get grading. Now we're directing everybody down like 300 to 103 and on through that way. Just my 2 cents, because I do this for a living. Now we don't have trucks pole dancing in town like they do down at Shell gas station. They've done that a few times. Mirrors are a thing. Anyway, sidewalks got brought up. I'm on board for Rose City Game Library. It's a nonprofit, got board games and stuff. Road is that Church Street, Main and Church. Don't have a ramp thing, the ADA ramp thing anymore. Made it kind of hard for my mom to get her little mobility chair over the curb and into the building. Also then too, we have put in a ramp. It's almost done. It's to go up to get into the display window. So Rose City is 235 South Main, right next to the Castle Theater, had a display window. The ramp now goes up to the display window. So that's a thing, we're making it more accessible for everybody. We're working on getting an ADA restroom, but we're working on that. That's a whole other thing with plumbing. So I had those 2 things since they were brought up in a roundabout kind of way that I hadn't had any intention of saying anything on. So April 1st is new moon, which probably means absolutely nothing to anybody but me. It means moon ain't gonna be out. That means that as long as Indiana participates, which it never does, because anytime there's a celestial event, we have clouds. If we turn off potentially some of the residential neighborhoods with new moon, you'd be able to see a whole lot more. Usually that's when towns do it, because first week of April is also Earth Day. So usually they do Dark Sky Week in conjunction with Earth Day. Didn't know if the town would be able to do something with that, potentially residential neighborhoods. Maybe not Hospital Heights, but the nicer neighborhoods. Hospital Heights is kind of rough, or so I hear.
That's a great place, though. A lot of good friends out there.
Yeah, I drove around there at night and I don't want to.
Big as you are.
That's why I carry a gun, too.
Is there?
Maybe I was in the wrong spot of Hospital Heights, so I don't know.
Okay, we better just let that one.
Yeah, slide that one down.
Yeah, really good. Slide right on down.
Is there I'm trying to think, I mean, obviously with residential, you've got trees and a lot of other things aside from lights that can cause an issue. Is there a public place where, you could see a gathering happen during that week where we could concentrate it more there than neighborhoods? Or you think cart equipment's just not a good idea?
So, yes and no. So, like my telescopes, because I got 2 now, that's the thing, they're multiplying. My telescopes are somewhere between like 5 and 10 pounds. My little one's probably like 5 or less. My mount, on the other hand, is weighing in at like 30.
Right.
And I need power. So, because I'm not going and buying a very deep cell battery.
Yeah, so that's the issue is the power.
Yeah, so that's for anybody that has a tracking mount or something. I mean, I've got an equatorial mount that's all mechanical and whatever, and it runs on D-cell batteries, but it ain't that great. I mean, you could do anywhere in the town. The one that would come to mind would be Baker Park, but that's a lot of lights to shut off.
Well, and then I guess my other question is, can Duke shut off like a certain amount of lights, or is it like all or nothing, or we don't even know?
Because that'd probably be a Board of Works.
Yeah, I don't.
Decision. So I would probably have to go before the Board of Works to ask them to shut off the lights.
There's some people that's in charge of Earth Day. They come to us with programs and planting trees and with a plan. So I mean, for us to say we're gonna do something, we would have to see something in writing, have some kind of organized plan. We've got organizations.
For the Board of Works.
Just write up a proposal with details and bring it to the
Yeah.
Board of Works and they can.
And then we would just have to ask students where we can turn lights off.
Right.
Yeah.
I know where a couple of the boxes are that keep blowing, but I don't have any idea around Baker Park. I don't know the fog is.
Yeah, I didn't know how that worked. Obviously, I'm sure there's not just a magical switch somewhere that somebody flips and they turn off. I mean, it could be. It ain't on the wall.
Light by light.
Yeah. The other thing that I was going to see about talking about is maybe getting some kind of lighting ordinance for the town. There's a lot of people that think that shining their bright LED light all over the neighborhood is great, and it's not just in my neighborhood, it's in a lot of places. They're just ridiculously bright and on all the time. And there's, depending on who it is, there's not a whole lot that anybody wants to do about it. Nobody wants to talk to their neighbor anymore. They want to brag about it on Facebook. That's the thing.
Have we had any complaints with the police department? Have we had any complaints about LED?
There is a complaint. Do they have a leg to stand on? I guess not.
So
No, because we don't really have any ordinance that
There's
says
something
it.
in place, right?
And even so, we would probably have to, we could make an ordinance that says any outdoor lighting replacements have to be this level of LED or less. But then you probably could not make everybody change all those immediately. It would have to be a grandfather or new construction.
yeah,
You know, and it's just like, I mean, it's kind of like fire pits. I mean, we have trouble with fire pits all the time, and, you know, we got an ordinance against them, but enforcing that ordinance is pretty tough, isn't it, Chief? And the same thing with it would be the same thing with the lighting deal. I mean, it would be some deal where somebody would have to, problem with the fire pit, somebody's got to report that. And then as soon as I have people call me all the time, I said, well, call the fire department. Well, I don't want to call the fire department because then my neighbor would know I called. Well, then all of a sudden, you know, I mean, but that's what people do.
Right.
And so you'd have a deal where for somebody to be called out on a light, they'd have to be turned in by a neighbor. Most neighbors don't want to turn anybody in.
So one of my neighbors has a light, and I don't go to that side of Beechwood because it's not on any of my routes. I mean, it just shines all the way across. It's the other side of Beechwood. I don't know if it's on a garage. I have no clue. I'm fortunate that I'm in my little cubby hole on my back patio doing my thing, and so it doesn't really bother me. However, I have a friend who lives over kind of close to the high school, and he had somebody put in floodlights like a block away that illuminate like everything like it's daytime. And then like you said, with fire pits, they was burning, and he ended up getting a bunch of smoke damage on his telescopes. And when he goes over to talk to them, they're all drunk and they're sitting around with their handguns out like they're going to beat him up. So,
well, I think maybe what we need to do, Mr. Harvey, could you look at some other communities and see if there are ordinances dealing with outdoor lighting?
Yeah.
And we'll have him look at that and see what ordinances other places have, and then we can see how we might be able to fashion something that can work here.
right.
That's the best we can do.
So for Indiana, the dark sky community with lighting ordinances would be Beverly Shores. All the rest of them are everywhere else across the nation. But that would be, I think you can find it under the International Dark Sky Association. They have a list of dark sky cities. Did that go through to you, that email I sent you?
With the photos?
No, the ones with the proposed ordinances, like an outline.
Oh, maybe I'll go back.
So,
Mr. Harvey will look up.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Because I had sent Aaron an email that had some like on a general guidelines, like it could look like this. Change your wording as you want to, type stuff.
Okay, well, Bill,
I'll forward Yeah, I'll forward it to 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, that's all I have. Other than that, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to come before the council? Valerie?
That's Roger.
I was gonna ask for the gemstone, Pat told me I couldn't, I said no.
Well, we could put your name on there for a certain price, probably.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
Are you here representing League of Voters?
Oh, okay, bless your heart, we made you sit here through this whole thing.
And just real quickly before we take a motion, I just want to read, I had the surgery and of course it wasn't anything nearly as traumatic as what Jerry had. But every time you ever go out to the hospital, you get treated 110%. Tremendous class, so just agree with that, Jerry. So now we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There we go.
Jerry. You should be. You're
Yeah, it's gonna be, it's a marathon.
It's on the side.
We're trying to have, the exception this past year, Dodge took its weight and hearing issues, everything's doing something.
Yeah, I know.